Ah, yes, the Knuckles show on Paramount Plus. So, this has been a pretty controversial series to say the least. It's a spin off of the two Sonic movies and the upcoming Sonic 3 movie that is on its way later this year. And I have to say that this Knuckles show, I didn't hate it. Despite all the hate, I have to say, I really was entertained by it, and it wasn't really what I would call a terrible show. Now, Sonic fans are some of the most serious, sophisticated people on the planet, let me tell you. But, in all seriousness, they sometimes take things a little bit too far. Oh my god! Am I losing my mind here? Am I saying something where I'm talking out of turn? Am I splitting atoms here, saying what I'm saying that Sonic fans might sometimes take things a little too seriously and make like things are the end of the world? If you want case in point for that, just play any Sonic game that a Sonic fan deems is bad and you will see what I'm talking about. There's people out there saying that Sonic Superstars is bad. And this is exactly what I'm talking about. Hyperbole. There is just so much of that going around in the Sonic fan base, and it's been going on for years. We need to know when to shut the peanut gallery out. Now, has there been some bad Sonic media? Without a doubt. But more times than not, it's not as warranted as the Sonic fan base would make it out to be. So we got 6 episodes here. Knuckles gets his own show. And it's kind of funny to me. I was just sitting back thinking to myself, Knuckles as a character went from not being featured in any of the Sonic cartoons in the 90s until Sonic Underground when he was in a few episodes. But I remember Sonic Sat AM and the Adventures of Sonic the Hedgehog. I was longing to see Knuckles in any of those shows, but it never came to be. And now he has his own show, and that's just like a flabbergasting thing to me. Knuckles, also forgotten about in many of the games, relegated to a side character where he just sits on the sidelines ever since Sonic 06. Pretty much, you got to play with him a little bit, but from that point on, he wasn't in Sonic Unleashed, he wasn't in Sonic Colors. How do you go from being one of the main characters of probably the most popular Sonic game of all time, Sonic 3 and Knuckles, to just being a side character at best? So we've got Knuckles and he's going on an adventure, and this is a very unlikely union to say the least. He's taking on Wade Whipple, the deputy sheriff, as his apprentice, after one of his ghostly elders, Chief Pachacamac, who's voiced by Christopher Lloyd, informs him to do so. And I thought that was just amazing to me. I was like, why does that voice sound so familiar? And I wasn't clicking at first. Check the credits. I see it's Christopher Lloyd. We've got Doc Brown voicing and Echidna Elder.
Great Scott!
And I love this because I'm a big fan of Sonic Archie comics. I don't care what people say about Ken Penders and all that. I just love Knuckles' outrageous, past and the story behind it. It's just, I would love to see more of that fleshed out. Maybe we don't need all the crazy romance and stuff like that going on, like in the Ken Penders comics. But I'll tell you, I have to say, I did dig a lot of what Ken Penders wrote, and just kind of really showing the love for Knuckles and the Echidna race, because let's face it, they've been forgotten about. What would you rather? Would you rather have the spotlight where Knuckles is getting all this great backstory and all these things happening to him and he's feeling like a star? Or would you rather him be like how he is here and actually getting the backstory that he deserves? So I really enjoyed that. So definitely more of Knuckles' past should be featured in more of Sonic media. Put it in the games, put it in the comics, do what you will. But I think Knuckles is a character that has been slept on for way too long and needs to make his return to prominence that he did have in the 90s. Now, James Marsden isn't in this show at all, but his wife Maddie is. And even Sonic and Tails show up in the first episode. And it's actually directed by the Sonic 1 and 2 director, Jeff Fowler. So that was nice to see. Now, the problem people have with this show, and I know I like to talk about, other people's viewpoints, and I get it. This is my review, so why am I even mentioning them? Well, when you have a show this controversial, I think it's almost mandatory that I do so. So, Wade is the point of contention for many, to say the least, when it comes to talking about the Knuckles show, to talk about this show. Now, Wade is a minor character from the first 2 Sonic films. He's the deputy sheriff to James Marsden. And I never even thought that he'd be getting any expanded material at all. And it's crazy to me that he's actually the main character in this show alongside Knuckles. Some people may argue that he is the main character and Knuckles is just the co-star. And I'm pretty sure many others didn't have this one in their bingo card either. I know that I certainly did not. So Wade wants to enter a bowling tournament, which Knuckles agrees to help him, and he's going to teach him the ways of the warrior. And he's out to find his estranged father who abandoned him in a TJ Maxx. Yes, the TJ Maxx, the department store we're talking about, and yes, they actually wrote that into the show. You know, I have to say, and we're going to get into it a little bit later on, that they really did have a lot of fun writing this show because it's just wacky, it's crazy, and this is the crazy thing to me, is that Sonic the Hedgehog overall is a pretty crazy concept. I mean, it's a blue hedgehog with running shoes on. So, you kind of sit back and you think to yourselves, well, this is some serious business. And a lot of that came from the Archie comics, and a lot of that came from, more strict storytelling in Sonic Adventure. But somewhere along the way, Sonic fans forgot about having fun, and that sometimes the series could be goofy. Let's remember that the Archie comics started off really goofy and comical, and there's some really comedic things in those early books that are worth a look. I think Sonic can be serious and he can be funny at the same time. Now, Sonic was goofing around for a while on things like Sonic Lost World and Sonic Colors, where there was a more comedic tone. I'm somewhere in the middle. I think Sonic can be both, and I think this is an example of where we get a little bit of both, because things get a little bit serious at times, but not too much. This is definitely a lighthearted show, to say the very least. So if we're going to sum up this show, I would pretty much say it's about Knuckles being alongside Wade Whipple as they try to evade 2 gun agents that are in hot pursuit, trying to capture Knuckles and bring him to the buyer, who is this character that's not fleshed out at all, and we'll get to him in a minute. He's after Knuckles. He's a former employee of Dr. Robotnik, and he wants to harvest his power. Wade Whipple wants to get to Reno, Nevada so he can participate in the bowling tournament against his father and confront him. And Wade Whipple is definitely a nerdy, goofy guy. He's a total klutz. He definitely is not a warrior, and that's probably why Knuckles has been tasked with making him into a warrior, because it's going to be quite a challenge, to say the very least. So I'm going to run through a couple of things on this show that definitely caught my eye, caught my ear. So I think almost anybody would probably want me to talk about this, and that is the Flames of Disaster episode, which is totally hilarious, where Wade is captured by his former bowling teammate and bounty hunter Jack, and he's trying to claim the bounty that's been put on Wade's head, and Knuckles tells him to meditate, and we get a full-blown rock opera explaining Knuckles' origins. Knuckles doesn't want to help Wade. He wants to teach him to be a warrior. So he's going to meditate, and he's going to have to find the answers in his subconscious. And this is being explained by a rock opera. And this is just totally insane. We've got Wade dressed in full Knuckles garb. He's in a costume. It's probably the craziest thing ever. He's singing in it, and he's got Michael Bolton's vocals. It's just absolutely insane, and I loved it. This is definitely an episode where Knuckles' screen time is called into question, and even though the Flames, a disaster episode, is definitely a funny and cool episode, it's definitely interesting to note that we could have seen Knuckles himself in the past through flashbacks instead of doing the whole stage props with Wade dressed as Knuckles shtick. It's crazy because this segment actually manages to delight and disappoint me at the same time. We even see a creature that Knuckles confronts before using the Flames of Disaster, or should I say Wade confronts in a Knuckles costume that looks like Iblis from Sonic 06, and that's what the Flames of Disaster is a reference to, no doubt. I mean, they're repurposing it here, but a Sonic 06 reference? It's kind of funny that they used such a hated game reference in the Knuckles show. But I really like how we talk about Knuckles' father, and we get a little bit of insight in his past. This is what I was talking about before. I like that the show does still talk about Knuckles' past, because yes, if you read any of the comics, the Archie comics, you would know that Knuckles has quite a rich history. And even though things, of course, are probably going to have to be changed around because of Ken Penders and stuff like that, it's nice to know that that type of material has not been completely forgotten about. Yes, it is segmented throughout these 6 episodes, but I really do appreciate the added lore that they added to Knuckles. But I do agree what seems to be the general consensus, or at least it's a very loud vocal minority, that the Wade stuff does definitely interfere. And although I'm not going to be hypocritical and criticize it too hard, because I do find Wade Whipple to be likable, charming, and he is a funny character, it's interesting how they managed to expand so heavily on such a minor character from the 2 Sonic films. And let's be honest, this is due to budget limitations. I couldn't find any information on the budget for this show online, but I'm sure it wasn't anywhere close to what was spent on either of the 2 movies, especially when Knuckles is conveniently absent at times. Overall, I like the characterization of Knuckles and how he's adapting to being on Earth and getting to be that fish out of water that's having an even tougher time adapting to his surroundings due to his strict disciplined ways. I really love the humor of the character and the series we were given as a whole. Idris Elba is just spectacular as Knuckles and was basically born to play him. You could just hear it in Elba's voice. He's having a good time. This is a very bizarre show. It's crazy, it's zany, and I mean, you want to talk about zany. Shabbat dinner with Rizzo from Greece? That's another one for the bingo card that definitely wasn't on there. It's bizarre and fun. It's basically a sitcom featuring Knuckles and the biggest goofball of the human cast in Wade Whipple. It's like a buddy cop movie of sorts as well, and it's all good fun. If you don't take it too seriously, you'll love it. But I'll be honest that it doesn't hit anywhere close to the Sonic 2 movie in terms of being a satisfying Sonic fan's dream come true like it was for me. It definitely needed more Knuckles lore and way more character development for the bad guys. I mean, you basically have the gun equivalent of Team Rocket in the 2 goons working for the buyer. You can tell Kid Cudi is having fun here, but these guys are underdeveloped to say the least, and that's all fine and well. They are lackeys after all, but not even the buyer has a fleshed out backstory. This guy is the supposed major threat, and he's just non-existent throughout the series. And don't give me the air of mystery excuse. Well, actually, not too many people are making excuses for this show from what I've seen, so I guess that doesn't really apply, but you know, just playing devil's advocate, I could see how one might try to make that argument. So when Knuckles and Wade finally make it to Reno, Wade confronts his father and finds out that he's the jerk that his mother said that he was, and probably even worse, as he actually helps out Gun And the final battle in Reno is just out of nowhere. The buyer finally shows up in the giant mech and battles Knuckles, and it's a cool fight, but damn, where has the buyer been all this time up to this point? I'm not a Game of Thrones guy, but Rory McCann has an awesome voice, and I'd love to hear more of it and learn more about this character. I mean, this guy worked for Robotnik. He must have some interesting stories. When he did work for Robotnik is never specified, and that's basically all we know about him. And see, that's the problem. Who is he? Where was he in the movies? None of this is explained, and that's very disappointing. It seems like he could be a cool villain or a stand-in for Robotnik until he returns in the third movie, but no, I really don't know what it is. If they couldn't get Roy McCann for all these episodes or what it was, but I just don't see how you can give such little screen time to the major villain. It's just very odd and peculiar. It's not like they were getting Jim Carrey for this, where it would be so hard to get. I mean, I looked at, Rory McCann's filmography, and no offense to the guy, but he's not exactly doing a whole lot of things these days. I mean, maybe there is some deleted scenes or something like that. Maybe they had to cut out a lot of the scenes that were featuring him for time. I don't know. I didn't hear anything like that. It's just an educated guess on my part. I think it would be the only thing that really made any sense, because how do you not have the major villain in so much of the show, and it's only 6 episodes to boot? But yeah, this show is entertaining, but it's not a thrilling piece of Sonic media like the Sonic 2 movie or a high-stakes story like Sonic Prime, but it's entertaining and funny. And as I said before, Sonic as a series has been many, many things over the years, and this is just another layer to the Sonic onion that just keeps peeling. So should you check it out? Well, that all depends. How much are you into a show like this as from what I described? If you want to laugh, if you want a lighthearted story with some Knuckles lore thrown in, I'd say it's worth your time. But if you're one of those Sonic sticklers that needs to have it, a streamlined Sonic story and no other nonsense, then yeah, I don't think this one is going to be for you, because I will be perfectly honest, there is a lot of nonsense in this show, and it is entertaining and funny nonsense to me, and I think overall it's a very pleasant package, what we've been given as a whole. But yeah, if you're just here for Knuckles and you don't want anything else, and you're not gonna have any lenient attitude towards it, then yeah, you're gonna absolutely hate this show. So guys, let me know what you thought down in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed the video, or the dislike button if you fucking hated it. And guys, I reopened my Patreon, so if you guys want to help me with new videos in the future, or just support me in general as a creator, I would greatly appreciate that. And guys, thank you all for watching, and I'll see you next time.